You know, this is my first Patreon request. I'm beginning to think this was a bad idea. Despicable Me is an animated family film by the fine folks at Illumination. While I haven't personally seen it myself, I kinda don't want to. But I have seen Minions, so that counts, I guess. Look, I'm not a movie critic, okay? While I do enjoy watching movies, I'm a video game player. I like playing video games. Although there's like 200 plus movies that I must watch according to a few people I know. Lucky for me, there's a video game tie-in, aptly named Despicable Me the Game. Yes, it's a licensed game, the bane of our existence in the video game industry. You know, except for microtransactions and live services. Pricks. But let's be honest, there are a few solid good licensed games out there. Like X-Men Origin Wolverine, for example. Look, I'm stalling, here's Despicable Me the Game.
So I had to look up what the plot was for Despicable Me to see if the game was just a copy-paste or an original concept in the franchise's universe. And it turns out it's a little of both, but not really. Gru intends to steal the moon for himself in order to supplant himself as the greatest villain of all time, but a rival villain, Vector, wants the same thing. So it's a race against each other as Gru breaks into various areas to steal rocket parts for his ambitious moon theft. The story is told in pre-mission briefings and the odd news segment. This is odd as usually licensed games would show clips of the film as a means to connect the levels together, but these briefings and news flashes just illustrate what's to be expected in the upcoming mission and what you just did. Eventually I just ended up skipping these as I just wanted to get to the next mission. I know I'm doing a disservice by doing that, but the story is practically non-existent, so it falls onto the gameplay and presentation to hold it up. The game can best be described as a puzzle platformer. As Gru, you move on a 2D plane while jumping on platforms, avoiding obstacles such as lasers or heated platforms to get to the vault. In here, you can then utilize the minions to your cold heart's content in order to get to the ship part you need. Also, you only have one hit. So if you happen to stub your toe or land on a heated floor, you'll have to restart at the most recent and very generous checkpoint. To help with this, you have various weapons to not kill enemies, but to freeze or move platforms, although there is the occasional hazard that needs a good freeze blast up the arse. But good luck hitting them as you aim by tilting the control stick up or down, and if you're a few degrees to the left or right, you're tiptoeing onto the scalding hot platform you're trying to hit. Between the two side-scrolling parts, I prefer the minion puzzles. Firing different groups of the yellow men from a set number used throughout the puzzle to either freeze, inflate, shock, or freeze then blow to press switches, break obstacles, or activate machines is quite clever and makes use of the Wiimote pointer, the only Wii motion gimmick this game has thankfully, in a useful way that doesn't interfere with the overall game. Too bad it had to be hampered by Gru's controls. He doesn't move so much as float through the stages, and the double jump tends to only work immediately after the first one. So if you want to methodically use the second jump to reach the platform, then bollocks to you. You will platform puzzle your way through this level the way the game wants you to. For a few missions I thought that's all the game was, but apropos of nothing, a freaking 3D shooter stage appeared, which says to be two things. One, that the developers were worried that the puzzle platforming would bore the young players if that's all there was, and two, Star Fox totally could have worked on the Wii if the controls were a lot more tight, not having to protect a ship throughout the entire level, and knowing when the hell I'm being hit. There is no indication I'm losing health because I'm looking at what I'm shooting at and the health meter of the other ship. In other 3D shooters, there is some sound effect or reaction. Not here, it's pop, dead, try again. Going back to the main part of the game, there's an odd gimmick where you do despicable acts to increase your despicable meter. The more despicable you are, the more rewards you get, like new minion costumes, if you're really looking into getting 100%. But it's a tacked on feature that adds nothing to the overall game. Let me get the best part of the way first, and I like the design on the minion puzzles. Each of the puzzle rooms have simple but well thought out sequences that even kids will solve. They're not the most elaborate puzzles, weighing down switches with ice minions, shocking them and using them as a perpetual battery, but using what little amount of the buggers you're given makes for some head scratching moments. Luckily, the game has puzzle blueprints that you can find within the platforming parts of the game and shows you step by step how to solve it. But like I said, they're within the platforming sections prior to the vault, and the design for these parts are again simple but very dull. It doesn't seem to matter which of the 3 areas you're in. Each have precisely the same elements to traverse across and avoid: death lasers, moving platforms, heated pillars and pits. All are easily avoidable, but the gameplay mentioned before means you will repeat these sections a fair bit. Luckily, or predictably on the developer's part, the checkpoints are frequent and each cock-up flows into the next without the consequence of diminishing lives. Even the shooter stages have this keep trying mentality, with every checkpoint restoring your health. But not the lock-on missiles, which need to be reloaded by the few balls you can find flying about the stage in either its on-rails or all-range sections. So you might as well die at the next obvious boss fight and get your ammo back. Oh, I forgot to mention there are boss fights in these segments, but they're so hollow and uneventful they're not worth mentioning. So it's not possible to actually fail at this game. You either finish it or give up. Ah, Jesus, that is horrifying! The presentation leaves a lot to be desired. Yes, the Wii is not as graphically powerful as its competitors, but it's not like it can't produce great looking games. This came out the same year as Sonic Colors and Super Mario Galaxy 2, so there's no excuse for nightmare-fueled corn kernels, but this is when they're up close. From a distance they look fine and can't jump out and strangle you through the TV. Same with Gru. He has a surprising amount of facial features when the camera zooms in. The rest of the game doesn't fare much better. Each of the environments you break into are bland and repetitive, and somehow have the same security measures, lasers and hot moving platforms. The music is forgettable. I can't recall a single track in this game even after just playing it. I will say, getting Steve Carell to reprise his role for the game is a nice touch of continuity, as I'm sure many kids would like to hear him, as Gru, telling them how bad they are at the game.
Oh, great! Here we go again! Would you please be more careful? Once again, from the top, maybe you should give the controller to someone else for a while?
Yeah, like most games with talking characters who have a limited selection of one-liners, it gets real annoying real fast, and no amount of celebrity voiceovers will make it any better. Let it be said that I didn't finish Despicable Me the Game. Most of what I could play before my brain started to shrink was so repetitive, boring and tedious that I couldn't force myself to go on any longer. I watched a Let's Play online to see what I would be missing, and the answer was not a lot. I talked up a lot about the puzzle rooms, but the constant floaty platforming and sudden Poor Man Star Fox stages left me bitter. I tried, I really did, but I wasn't having fun, and without fun there's no point to me continuing. Like with most licensed games, there is some element in there that can work if it was taken out and put in a game of its own and expanded upon. The Minion puzzles are actually the main focus of the DS version, Minion Mayhem. So between the two games based on the first Despicable Me movie, go for that one. As for Despicable Me the Game on the Wii, don't bother. It's not worth the headache or the frustrations to get to the small amount of fun you may have, unless you really like Despicable Me or like playing bad games altogether. I rate this game 3 out of 10.